Andy, there's no sound on YouTube.
Actually, I would say that will fix it. So, alright, so everyone listening live and to the recording, this is a little bit of a hands full to keep up with and to deal with the show. So, um, and I'm supposed to be the tech guy. That's the sad thing about this series. So, uh, anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Brief introduction. Everybody knows to go to the website to look for scheduling and for those kind of things. Tonight on the Fine Scale Show, I've got Ralph Renzetti with me, as always, and Lloyd from Hawks HO Railroad with me as well. We do have some interesting things coming up. Wednesday, tomorrow night's going to be a really interesting show. The end of the locomotive shop, first in its series. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then hopefully Thursday's back on as normal with Johnny at the helm. So this could be a bit to keep up with when you're hosting and directing. Those jobs are a little taxing. So I understand Johnny's plight very well. So tonight we're going to start. We got a couple things to kind of cover. So we're going to start down a different avenue. The last couple shows we kind of did independent things. The last one I was a show kind of targeted at me that I really wanted to see doing the signage. I was really happy with the results of that after doing a little bit of work with it, and that's done on plastic, which is perfect for what we're going to start talking about tonight. So while we've done a lot in the way of woods, we've done a few rather, I would say a lot, but a few wood structures so far. This imagine that laser art structure that I'm completing the flat that I have going up for mine. I've got floors that I'm gonna finish so that we can do some interior stuff in the near future. I think we could do several shows just dedicated to interiors with the plethora of detailed parts and 3D printed parts from white metal to lost wax, brass, etc. There's and wood and scratch building a few things. You could spend an ample number of shows talking about what it takes to get interiors. And if you really want to meet the bar for fine scale, it's got to be pretty believable at a depth, I think, or at least that's my instinct. So interiors and lighting and bringing life to a scene bring a critical element to meeting that fine scale qualification, in my opinion. Of course, what you qualify as fine scale or craftsman, what somebody else will, you got to remember it's your railroad, and all any of us hopefully are trying to do is meet the bar that we've set for ourselves, and that's it. But tonight we're going to start talking about styrene, and to kind of start the conversation, I wanted to kind of have a conversation with the guys too. I mean, and we've mentioned this several times before, but to meet the craftsman qualification or the fine scale qualification or the high fidelity qualification, whatever that is that you want to the standard or the bar that you set for your modeling, it's irrelevant what medium you work with. And in my opinion, there is an A right medium, and truthfully, if you want to do a pretty exceptional job, it's going to require multiple mediums. There's places where wood is the perfect medium, where hydrocal is the perfect medium, or resin, where using paper and brass and various metal materials to meet certain standards. Well, styrene fits that bill for a lot of things. Anybody who's hung out with me on any of the live video shows knows that I don't have a real love for plastic. I think Rubbermaid is just fine for certain things. And like I will say about ground covering, ground foam for ground covering. I love foam rubber. Foam rubber, it makes a couch incredibly comfortable. But on my layout of scenery, it's not my preference. That doesn't mean I don't use it at all. I just use it much more sparingly. And I feel somewhat that way about styrene, but I think my opinion is changing as I'm becoming more informed about some of the things we can do to get styrene there. So, um, and I have thankfully just had better success as of late with styrene than I had ever had before. I'd worked with styrene for years back when I built many of the railroads I built before, and all of my buildings were plastic or styrene, and they were not exceptional in any way. But there's a lot you can do with styrene, and it really, I mean, I've seen several plastic kits. Actually, Ralph's got one that's pretty. Actually, both you guys do. Lloyd has one too that just looks like a wood kit. At least on camera. Granted, the camera doesn't do enough justice to some of this detail, but I couldn't tell that that's not a wood kit. That to either one of those that you guys have, those are. So I think plastic you could do just as good a job with, especially that corrugated steel roof that you did, Ralph. That's spectacular.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of work into individual metal 3x8 squares to make a metal roof and etch them with a photo etchant, which is an acid, and yeah, that's the trick. Tell them how that works.
I used a piece of acetate. And the space, that's basically 2 rows. The space between them is the space of another tile.
Yeah, 3 foot or whatever. Sure. Oh, that works like a champ. And I've seen a few people. Modeler Man Mike, he did a Walther's kit, a coal loadout, I'm pretty sure it was. And he scored the individual planks, took an X-Acto and scored the lines in it. So you could get there. I don't think they come out of the box. Generally speaking, styrene kits don't come out of the box with the bar set very high. But that doesn't keep them from being able to beat the bar. I mean, same thing's true with the Craftsman kit. A box of sticks doesn't necessarily come out looking great either. It's about what craftsmanship you apply to it.
Yeah, Andy, you were talking about that building. I just took it out here.
Yeah, that's a good looking kit.
Yeah, that's a plastic kit, but like you said, it looks like wood.
Yeah, but tell them how many decades you've been in the hobby to get that good.
This building, 1.5.
Yeah.
Oh, decades, 0.1.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and some of us have a natural aptitude for it. When I was doing plastic all those years ago, I was a teenager, and I just wasn't that good with styrene, and it was rattle canning stuff, and some things I was reasonably, I could head lay track and do some of that stuff quite early on, but structures were difficult for me. This time around, I said every structure on my layout was going to be a wood kit. It was going to be a Craftsman kit, and my preference was for scratch building everything. But that's not possible, and the more plastic I'm seeing that is in the upper echelon of skill sets kind of disproves the necessity for it. So we got a couple plastic kits. I've done a little bit of pre-work on mine. I'd already done some work on it. It was originally intended to do, I was going to light it, numerous of the windows to do something with Arduino. I didn't think I'd even use it on the layout, but I'm quite sure I will at this point. But, and it's the Mount Arms Hotel, and Lloyd has this same kit. It's a DPM kit, originally DPM kit. Yeah, this kit. I've already set the door in sets, and I've already put this one corner together. I mean, coincident, but I have a few pieces in various states. I was treating that like a scrap piece. I was using it to test my side work before I worked on my wood structure. But those sides come out, and that brickwork, that discoloration come out. I mean, at least up to my satisfaction. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and carry on and treat it like it's going to be something that'll end up on the layout. And we've got some naked plastic leftover parts. Which, I always kind of treat a kit like a box of parts anyway. I don't have a real tendency to follow instructions or even really read instructions for that matter. So,
but I think to start a kit, I mean, you may not have the same idea. You may not want to put it together the way they suggest, and that's fine. But in order to understand the kit and how it goes together, to understand that part is how you maneuver it to change it the way you want, not the way they want.
Okay.
There are some things you have to do in order to make parts fit your way.
So understanding how they meant for walls to lap and such is a big deal, especially on like DPM kits where they lap in a particular way.
Yeah. Well, like this kit here. this is the Red Wing building. Everybody's seen the Red Wing building. Here's a picture of it. Hang on. This is what it's supposed to look like.
It's not supposed to, but that's how it looks.
That's how it's supposed to look.
That's what the manufacturer intends. And I see them on layouts all the time, and they always look like that.
Okay, so what I did is, because this is 3 bays deep, I cut it on the inside of this pilaster all the way down. Cut it right across. So now I have the back side, which has just the pilaster thickness, and the front side that has the double thickness. So what you see behind me is the 2 wall thickness, or the 2 bay thickness. No, sorry, that's the single bay. This is the 2 bay thickness. So I cut it right here where the pilaster would be.
Oh yeah, okay.
Now, if you wanted to do any additions or add anything to the wall, that's where you'd do it. You wouldn't cut to the other side of the pilaster, and then, because it just wouldn't look right, unless it's an outside corner. If it's an outside corner, then you have it on both sides.
Sure.
But inside corner, you can do it either way. You can do it both, but you don't have the extra material to do it on both.
Right.
So I've taken this, and all of these little openings that they have here, I took some JT architectural plastic, and it's brickwork. And this is part number 97421. It's what they call TT scale, 1/125, because I wanted a small brick. And I started cutting the panels to fit inside the openings, and I put them inside, and I painted them to look like brick. So this one here, I'm pretty well finished with all the panels. This one I'm still working on. And then the worst part of this kit, somebody else built it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So I had to deconstruct it, and boy was I cursing and swearing, because whoever put it together used the tester's tube glue, which is a pain in the butt to try and de-glue, but there is a little trick to it. When I popped out the windows and so on, once you get the corner of it free, and I used the number 11 blade, and I just stuck the blade under the corner. Once I got it free and had the knife wedged in there, I came back with some Tamiya liquid cement, or you can use MEK, and I went around the window itself on the inside, and when the glue or the liquid hit the existing glue, it just popped right off.
Softens it up, yeah.
Softens it up. It popped right off. So I managed to get them all off except for 2 garage doors on that one. And all I did when I painted it is I masked it, and I painted it with some Rust-Oleum texture paint that looks like concrete.
Yeah.
And it came out really nice. You can't see it on the camera, but it came out nice. So now the only thing I had left for me to do is to paint the roof, because that's overspray now. But I wanted to get the cement all the same color. Once I got the panels in place and everything, and I got all the roofs on and whatever's hanging off the walls in place, then I'll go back and hit it with my weathering techniques, all the rust and so on.
All right, so that brings up a couple points that we'll probably have to talk about before we get to the thick of this. I mean, when we talked about wood, we talked a lot about adhesives, paints, the various. Man, that does look really good. The awning, especially. Yeah, it's good looking. That come together. It sure looks a lot better than stock.
Yeah, and you can see it's 1 bay thick.
Would it be hard for somebody to see that building as, oh, that's that Walther's building I've seen 1,000 times? Like,
That's
if
right.
you build it stock, that's the way
Yeah,
they
it's
look.
going to be different.
Yep. That's why I just about never follow the instructions on a kit. I've looked at so many layouts between all the magazines for decades and YouTube, and layouts I've seen and visited, I'm just tired of seeing the same structures over and over and over again.
So I don't know if anybody remembers my little corner where I want to put my town. The reason I split the building is so that I could put it around a corner and add stuff in front of it and have different depths. This corner is from front to back is about 18 inches. And he's got so much stuff crammed in here, and there's more that adds on to the left-hand side. But I wanted to do this to mine and make it so that it's removable so that I can get to my track work that's underneath. But I wanted it to look really congested like that. I don't know whether I'm going to show the streets the same way, but I'll figure something out. I have a 90-degree corner to play with.
Which is perfect for doing some of that depth perception anyway. You could hide so much in the corner. The corners tend to be kind of a sore spot on most layouts, but they don't have to be. They can be a real opportunity. But I see them done as kind of sore spots a lot of times.
Yep.
So you like the Tamiya adhesive? So let's cover this couple adhesives because we probably use a few different things. What adhesives do you prefer? Yeah, both of you.
My preference is the Tamiya Thin, and it comes with a really fine brush in it, so you can actually target whatever you want to put it on.
Yep.
And the nice thing about the liquid glue, you hold the parts together, you make sure your finger's not on the joint, otherwise capillary action will come right into your fingerprint and leave a fingerprint in the plastic. So you hold it in such a way that you put your glue at the top and capillary action will take it a lot of the way down. About halfway down, you add some more. And it sticks like crazy.
How fast does it act compared to, say, 10X or MEK? So in my experience, so I love 10X7. Love it. It's an exceptional adhesive, but you just can't find it.
Can't get it anymore.
No, so I've went to use an MEK when I want a standard fast-acting seal, or when I've been able to, like in this case, I had to make this quarter meet, and actually these are cut with a bevel on them. They're cut at a 45 instead of a lap joint the way most every other joint on every other kit has a lap joint, which has a whole set of other problems to deal with, and we'll have talked through those particulars in a minute, but this was hard to get that fine point to come to a point, so I had to hold that in a position and use a fast-acting glue. A 10X7 would have been my go-to, but I've went to use an MEK, which is not, it's toxic, but it's not as fast as 10X7, but it's a little slow, just slightly slower.
You can buy this at Home Depot, at Lowe's, whatever your big box stores are. This stuff works beautifully on plastic, but you have to make sure you work in a well-ventilated room.
Yep.
It's fast-acting. The Tamiya stuff is not as fast as this, and your 10X is probably a little bit faster. Although I think I would bet money that they're the same.
It's only a little bit. And 10X is a methylethyl ketol. It has methylethyl whatever. There's several of those. Methylethyl different things. Yeah, it is a ketone. It is either an MEK or a methylethyl variant of some kind with some other additives to it. Because that's what most of these glues, 10X7s and Plastrux product, they're all based on methyl ethers of some kind. Some guy or some company is buying that stuff by the gallon or 55-gallon drum and mixing it and putting it in these little small bottles. And I do the same thing. I bought a gallon of MEK for $25, and I just decant it into this little small bottle as I need some and use a micro brush.
Right. And that's the other two that I use.
Yeah, I wasn't as fond of the Plastrux stuff personally.
But it works great on styrene.
Okay.
which is what it's meant for.
Yeah, I'd like to try the Ambroid. I've heard good things about ProWeld.
It has ABS, styrene, butyrate, and acrylic. And then Ambroid is basically the same stuff. It works
Lloyd,
on
what
the
kind of
same.
adhesives, what kind of plastic solvents and adhesives are you using?
Say that again?
Let's try to get, if Lloyd's still there close by, see what kind of adhesive Lloyd's been using.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm always using the same thing. I'm using, this is what I got.
Yep.
That's what I've been using.
Oh, yeah. The Fowler stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
I was going to mention that too. I need to try that Super Expert, whatever the difference is. This is great, and as I mentioned as a last item, I don't use it much because it's slow setting. But if I'm working with parts that need time to work, or that I need the time to put them on, like where I need to line straight edges over a period of time, and I have done it on the bridges where I put some plating on the bottom of the bridge, and I need the glue to not set up so fast, where I can't use capillary action to actually hold the places. I've got to put a little adhesive on there and stick it to it. This Fowler stuff is the bee's knees if you've got time, if you're patient.
If you're interested, if anybody has access to Trainmasters TV, Miles did a whole segment on glues.
He did, and a bunch of things I hadn't heard of.
And the pluses and minuses of each one of them.
And several that I hadn't heard of or didn't have any particular experience for or with, and several applications of using those adhesives that I hadn't exactly thought of before. Miles pretty original with some of that.
Yeah.
Stu Structure says he likes the 45-degree quarters, and especially if the brick is molded right. And in the case of brick molding, I think I would probably prefer the beveled quarters. In this case, it had to because of the moldings. I don't guess you'd call it corbels. No, it's not, but it's just molding down the corner. The 45-degree was a necessity. I would love to see that on brick, and it's one of the things that I have a hard time solving, is how to make a good-looking brick quarter. Now, this structure, and you'll see this on a lot of DPM kits, etc., they mean for this to wrap in a certain way. So on one side of this back plate, there's molded brick, and I've painted that side, and there's brick molding. On the other side, there's not. And then this piece is meant to go completely inset, so it insets back in behind this wall. It also insets back in behind on this piece. So this piece has molding out here, and I've painted this outside as well so it can set. But the thing you've got to deal with on all of these that are inset that aren't 45s, and I'm not saying you don't have to do a little sanding on the 45s too, but you got to be careful. You can damage them pretty easy. All of these plastic pieces have draft angles. So you'll have this, and I haven't messed with this one at all. So this piece will have this slight bevel down, normally from back toward front, where it was in a molding, and where they popped that molding out. So so draft angles, you've got to sand those draft angles and clean those up. DPM kits are notorious for it. Sometimes can be somewhat difficult, especially when I did O-scale some years ago. Those things are a 1/4 inch thick, if not a little bit more. And getting those draft angles down to where you have a nice 90-degree quarter in every quarter around this direction it's important to get a good seam. And I still don't know exactly how you solve that problem, because even when you get a nice tight seam between those quarters, the brick is not continuous across that seam. That annoys me.
That's up to you to continue the brick lines. Get them as close as possible, and then scribe it across.
Well, in this case, in this kit, the bricks don't go all the way on the sides, because that building, it's the concrete that goes all the way to the side.
Yeah, it's got a masonry facade, or concrete facade.
Exactly.
Yeah. But on the back two quarters, between the back two brick quarters at this quarter, and this is a good example for this particular kit. Doesn't have 4 brick quarters, not at all, but it does have this one quarter where brick meets brick. And I've thought about ways to solve that. Should a person sand the gap into it, so it has a slight V so that you can put a little squadron putty in it or something, and then score the brick across that? That seems to be hard to ever make look right, though.
Andy, there's a question here. Bruce Giroux. Do all glues melt styrene when it's used to create a bond? I would say most liquid glues melt the plastic. If you use the glue that's in a tube, like a toothpaste, the old style tester's glue, it does it somewhat, but not like the liquid glues. The liquid glues actually weld your parts together.
And it's not that you have to. I mean, you could use a different type of adhesive. Strictly speaking, when we're talking about plastics or plastic or styrene glues, quote unquote glues, we're talking about solvents for the most part that degrade that material to allow it to soften up and for them to weld, to literally weld the molecules of the plastic to the molecules of the opposing piece of that plastic. It's a molecular bond. So you could use, it's not that I haven't seen people CA some stuff together like that. I don't have great experience with CA. I mean, I think it's a great adhesive. I use CA all the time, but it gets brittle over time. And I think CA has a lot of really good applications, but gluing plastic to plastic is not really its strong suit.
Stu Structure say I've done the squadron putty on the joints, but it's a lot of work. It is. And I think you'll find if you can get yourself a primer that is a solvent-based primer, you'll be able to, a lot of the primers, or not a lot of, there's one particular one where it's sandable, and you can actually fill the gaps with that primer.
Yeah, there's a lot of those that are primer filler combinations.
Yep.
And they are pretty good stuff. What's that primer you used that you were talking about recently? Has that got a filler in it?
I don't think it does, although I can't really say. It's called Stynylrez.
Stynylrez, yeah.
It's made by Badger. It comes in multitude of colors. I have black and gray, and I have a white as well. And it's spelled Stynylrez. And this stuff, when you put it in your airbrush, if you have a cup, you'd think it's not going to spray because it seems to be so thick, but it says right on the bottle, can be sprayed directly from the bottle. And it sprays beautifully. You just increase your pressure by about 5 pounds, and it's beautiful stuff.
So you're shooting it at 23, 24, 25 pounds.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, good enough. All right, so paint. So that's the discrepancy, and I don't see it. Of course, it's a matter of opinion and what process works for you. But I see a lot of modelers on YouTube and people that I see exceptional results out of will paint all their individual walls, put windows in them, weather them, and then assemble the wall sections. And so there's some parts of that don't work as well in wood construction. I'm not saying I would never do that technique. There are applications where that's a great technique. And especially with the glass that I've been using recently for windows, that Sierra Model Works glass, that stuff, it probably is easier to build the walls up. But I also like the benefit that you get when you assemble everything and put a good coat of primer on it. It seals a lot of the gaps up for you. And you just can't get that if you are painting and then assembling.
Well, the way I do it is I paint first and I assemble, and then I do the touch-ups afterwards.
And
I see a lot.
hopefully you didn't mix the color that you wanted.
Hmm?
I say, hopefully you didn't have to mix the color you wanted, because then when you go back and patch it up, you may not mix the same color.
If I am to mix colors, I usually do a batch so I can keep.
Okay.
And then brick, I'm doing this little sponging technique on brick, which I like real well. I used one of those. It's not a makeup sponge; it's a piece of packing sponge. Actually, I'm pretty sure you pointed me at it, Ralph, to try that. Try it for that technique, but ripping it up, making a coarse edge, but I pat the brick to get a color. So the coloration I get on brick has a lot to do with what kind of mood I'm in. You know, whether I'm patient or fast or forceful or not. I'm not saying I couldn't patch it up. And this is one of the cases where I'm working with a painted, treated wall. But again, I
Yeah.
was treating this wall as scrap and was just playing with it. It just turned out good enough that I want to use it.
That's done with a sponge.
Yep.
And you don't have to give it even coloring. So you can see right here, there's lighter spots.
Yep.
And that's what happens in a real brick.
Oh yeah, that's what I did on this one. It's got, and this is just plastic, but it's got light and dark spots all over it. I did the same thing to my wood too, and it has patchy spots in it.
And that one there, same thing. Now I've added a bit of weathering to this.
Yep. So I tend to like to paint after. But there are some disadvantages, and I don't know that there's a right answer. Maybe it's just both.
Well, don't get me wrong, Andy. I mean, the first coat I give is like the primer coat, the color that I want as a background. Like this building is going to be more of a, it's called slate gray. The front part is going to be slate gray.
Yep.
And the side where you've got the bricks is going to be brick red. So this is the first coat that I'll be giving, sorry. Then once it's assembled, then that's when I do all the touch-ups, and if I have to add different colors, like for the bricks, I'll be sponging afterwards. But also, I got to do all the black inside, so the pieces have to be apart. I wouldn't be able to do all the black once everything is assembled because I've got 4 different floors.
Yeah. And this is one of the problems I have with this kit and DPM kits in general is in the painting process. These molded on windows, molded on mullions, that's just overly tedious. It's not impossible to do. It's just overly tedious to get those painted.
Well, imagine doing that hotel in N scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I would.
Like Ron is doing. Ron from Ron and Trains thing. Trains and things. God, I can't talk tonight.
Yeah, and I think I got a little bit of paint on my windows, but I pre-painted the whole thing. I sprayed the brick with, and I used different colors of primer, grays. On the wood structure, I used a brown primer so I could kind of warm the brick up. Because primer color does make a difference in the finish coat, of course. That's why you see, if you want a candy apple red car, they're going to put a strong primer color underneath it of some kind.
Ron's Trains and Things wants to know if, since you use the real glass on the back of your windows, wants to know if you can give us a link for
Absolutely.
the glass.
Yep. For anybody after the fact that's watching the show, it's Sierra Scale Models. And I'll find you a link here in just a minute for that. Now, I have microscope tiles also. And I talked about this a little bit more in some detail on an earlier show. And actually cut the glass and installed it on a structure. I think the first kit we did. And other than some experimentation, that was the first structure that I had done entirely with that glass. That stuff's pretty spectacular. I tried the microscope tiles. And in this case, for this structure, the microscope tiles aren't a bad way to go. Just take a tile and cover, several windows with it. And it has the nice reflective quality. if you're not too close. But you can distinctly tell how thick it is. And it is just too thick compared to...
Yeah, but if you use the upper glass on the slide, it's not too thick.
Right, it's better. The cover slide is...
it's half the thickness of the microscope.
Yeah, I think a microscope slide is like 0.13, 13 thousandths. I think cover slide is 7 thou. This is 3. So these are roughly 5 or 6 times thinner than a standard microscope tile. A little over half as thin as a... You can't tell, it's glass, but it's incredibly thin. And actually, it's quite hard to cut. You need to cut it on glass, or I cut it on wood. On a stick. I'll lay a stick out and cut it, because you can't cut it on a cutting mat. As soon as you put the tool to it to cut it, it'll just pop. And it is pretty easy to break, even after installed. It is thin, and it is fragile. Plating it in the windows, like in that structure we did on the fine scale show, the first couple of episodes, I actually inset the glass and cut it to the size of the window casing. So it actually set back in the... when I pushed the window in, it went flush to the wall. So if you look at the interior, there's no glass overhanging the edges or anything. It's perfectly tight inside. The interior looks like you'd expect the interior of the building to look. But if I was doing this, and the way I'm going to use this kit, I will cut that glass so I don't use up so much of it. But I'm just going to lap it and cover the plastic. I've got to think about the adhesive for that. Gluing that glass to wood is easy. That works out no problem. But gluing it to plastic, I'm not sure if my canopy glue will work as well. Maybe if I sand it a little on the inside to make sure it does. Need to paint it though too, and then that hurts your adhesive properties. Or at least it does with plastics adhesives. I don't guess it'd matter with canopy glue. Acetate is effectively just a plastic, so... And most of the buildings on my layout have acetate windows in them. Nothing against acetate, I just... If it's in the background, I probably would use acetate, but... At this point, I've kind of fell in love with the glass, so... If you're going to do a lot of these too, glue a piece of sandpaper to wood helps a lot, and I found a big piece of shelf worked better for me. Easier for me to hold in position so I could get a strong 90-degree angle on what I'm working with. So I'll get my draft angles cleaned up on this piece.
We have another couple of places where you can pick it up. David Start says, Clover House also has glass, 0.006 thick. You can also find it from China on eBay, cheap.
Yeah, I bought microscope tiles and cover slides in my first bit of experimentation. And I went and bought a glass cutter. And I started working with it. And I could work with it. It's entirely workable. The cover slides are just fine. The ones I bought, I think, were 7 thousandths of an inch. Clover, the 0.6, and I think that's more than adequate for most applications, especially in a case where you overhang the glass around the outside of the window. I don't think it makes any difference at all, as long as you're flat. And in this case, because of the way the mullion and the trim around the window is, the seal, etc., of the window, you'll have to put the glass flush on the back. There's no getting around that. So I won't be able to build this building in a way where you can see through a window into the back of another window. Whereas the little section house I built, you could look through the door and see the back side of a window, so it had to look better.
Right. I think the easiest way to cut that stuff, if you can get yourself a diamond glass cutter, not a wheel, it's a commercial grade diamond set on a holder, and you scribe the glass, and you hardly have to touch it. You just scribe it, and then it snaps right on the line. So there's really not that much pressure as you would put with a a glass cutter that has a wheel on it.
Yeah, a straight scribe worked pretty good for me on the microscope tiles, but the cover tiles, I could do it, but I broke a bunch of them trying. So you have to really perfect it. But I've got, if I could find that tool here quick, I just moved a bunch of stuff around, so maybe I won't. I bought a tool from Sierra Model Works, and actually that's how I found those guys. I was trying to find a better tool for cutting the cover tiles, the cover slides. And I was trying to figure out how anybody else was that was modeling with it. So I started looking around at it. And that's when I found Sierra Model Works, who was selling this tool, which is a carbide tip glass cutter, like a pencil. So, and you can buy that from them for, it could have been 10 or 15 bucks, something in that neighborhood. And you score it about 3 times. And just keep scoring it lightly. And just keep scoring it, keep scoring it, keep scoring it, and it'll pop loose. And
But you don't have to do that. You score it once, and you just tap it.
if I do that, I get coarse quarters. I get rough quarters. I've done that some, but I get rough quarters sometimes, not always.
And emery paper will clean that up.
That's true. Yeah, you could. But I've had some of the quarters break off and stuff. But you're going to go into it if you're going to.
Or even a honing stone.
Oh, really? On glass?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, you got to go into it. If you're going to work with glass, you need to go into it thinking you're going to break about as much as you use. And I think I've got my percentage better than I have got my percentage much better than that, and I'm probably breaking about 10%.
That's not bad.
No, so you're going to break some, and I just use it for smaller windows. But now I've done it now and cut quite small windows. I cut the small windows for the doors on this Imagine That Laser Art kit, and those windows are an 1/8 inch square or something in that neighborhood, and I cut those windows, and they're just ever so slightly oversized. So that worked pretty well, and then I used it for the door in the roof stair hatch on the Imagine That Laser Art kit, and but now that's a much bigger door, much bigger window. I wish I could find. I know I've got that light here. That really looked wonderful. And in some places, I don't think it's worth the trouble. There are plenty of places where it's not worth the trouble, but boy, when you're working up front on a layout, or any time that you have an area where light reflection would be quite strong, the glass has 2 positive benefits. One, it reflects light a lot. It's very, very reflective, and acetate's not. So it sheens back at you like you would expect acetate to do. And I've seen people clear coat acetate to get a good effect.
Yeah, you use Future Floor Finish. Stu Structures. Can you cut a moon-shaped glass for your outhouse?
I don't know if I could cut glass to match that, but I did cut the moon shape out in my outhouse. So it does have a moon on my outhouse door. I mean, this is Appalachia in 1950. Outhouses are important. Even to the point where, on but these outhouses, I really love these. I've got a couple of these. These are Wild West models, I think, outhouses. And this one is a one-holer, and it even has the seat in there with the lid laid back above it.
You don't have the executive outhouse?
And I made a hinge for the door. So you could open the door. And then all these small structures I plant on T-pins. So anyway, outhouses are important, but they weren't very nice with glass. Of course, this one does have a little window on the end of it. I probably should put some glass in that now that you mention it. It's a little tedious to get in there now after the fact. But I'm not known for taking the easy way out on much, so
I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to touch them.
it was like a gimme or something. So this kit needs to go that way, that way, that way. I think.
Guys are saying, Ron from Ron's Trains and Things, Andy, should you model someone sitting in it? Well, Stu's Structures came back and said, Woodland Scenics used to make an outhouse with the door open and a man standing there doing his business.
Yeah.
Jared Ashley said, glad I'm in N scale, too small for that detail.
There was, I've seen a couple applications of that. I've seen it with a guy sitting there with a newspaper. That works great. That's a good effect. I probably should do that. That makes sense. But I seen a German model group that's on YouTube that does a lot of animation. And they had done some kind of thing where the door opened and the guy stood up inside or something. So, there's a lot of ways you could take that, though. You could have a lot of fun with that, you know. Not fitting for this show, but for the Arduino show, a little ambient sound effects, and, you're right there with the guy, so you could have a lot of fun with it. Just have a little humor without.
You add one of those smoke things that gives you scents.
Yeah, let's skip that part. My wife, I've got some of the smoke fluid that tastes like, or smell. Well, I guess it tastes like. She says tastes like, but smells like burning coal-fired steam or whatever, smoke fluid. And my wife hates that. Just hates that stuff.
Yeah, Ron says, yeah, the newspaper would be perfect. Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yep, it's 1950. That's what they had out there.
Yeah.
I probably ought to.
A telephone book hanging on the wire on the side.
Yeah, that's kind of that's what I need to do that. And especially since mine, several of mine are right on the edge of the layout, which is, the kind of the scene I wanted. It gave me the best chance to model along the riverfront, be able to see houses and yards, road, all the way up onto the track, onto the roadbed and the track. So you're getting the view as if you're standing in a guy's backyard barbecuing and the train goes by. That rail fan effect. I was really going for that. Kind of went out of my way to try to get that effect. Change my camera around just a second and I will. This kid.
Boy, do you have one of those things for doing corners?
Nope.
So how do you keep it 90 degrees?
With a block of wood.
Okay.
One of the best tricks I've seen for doing that is Legos.
Yep.
Perfectly square, and you can make inside corners and outside corners. And it's hard to call Legos cheap these days, but they're sure cheaper than dedicated modeling squares.
Yep.
I've got some 1, 2, 3 blocks. I don't
work.
They're great for certain applications, but they're a lot of trouble for most applications. If I need the weight, they're incredibly handy. If I don't need the weight, they get in my way a lot.
Yeah.
So Andy, you wanted me to tell you a bit how I go about it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is what I usually do on any kit I do. It doesn't matter if it's wood, plastic, DPM. First thing I do is, depending on the scene, I'll pick the building that really fits what I want to do. And then I've got a list of everything I need to do for a building. I might not do all of them for a building, but I have a checklist. And one of the checklists, on my checklist, I've got, for example, lights. Do I want lights in my building, outside my building? Where do I want them? So here, this is, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, that's the building, right?
All right.
So everything you see in red, that's where the lights are gonna go. I want those rooms to be lit up. Okay, so I know exactly what I have to do, because the first building I ever did, it was all assembled, and it was kind of too late to put the to put the lights in.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to do after the fact. I have went back and done it on one of the interlocking tower I built. I went back and added lights to, but I didn't plan for it, so I had to run the power feed for the lights up through. I drilled a hole through a white metal chimney, or I'm sorry, a white metal potbelly stove, and then put a piece of brass tube on top of that and run my wires up through the middle of the potbelly stove and up through the brass tube to get from the floor to the roof to put a light above in that interlocking tower, because it's got windows all the way around.
Mm-hmm. But for example, the building we're doing right now, imagine having to put lights on the second floor once you've got the floors done. That's not going to be easy.
Well, you do like Miles was doing the other night. He was cutting cardboard to make little shadow boxes to go behind those areas that you want to light up.
That's what I'm going to do for this too.
Yeah.
Finish those shadow boxes with wallpaper or whatever, but they're made out of a solid enough material that it doesn't leak light through.
That's right. Or you paint your walls black.
Yeah.
Anyway, on my list, the second thing is the paint. I got to pick my colors. That's before I even do anything else. So I got my colors, and also to make sure that what kind of weathering I want to be done on the building. Then floors. Do I need floors? In this case, in this building, I've got 3 floors, which I started doing the retaining of the floors, which is just going to sit there. And of course, it has to be painted black, so I don't want the lights to shine on the next floor. You want roof details. Like that DPM building, they give you the roof. I don't know if you got it near you, Andy?
Yeah, I do.
That roof sheet, it's like a piece of paper.
Yeah, I don't use it either.
If you're going to put extra details on the roof, that's not going to hold.
No, I use a thicker stuff. Actually, what I found the best, and I think this is Modeler Man Mike or Gino or what those guys' trick was using these for sale or yard sale signs. In this case, I got this so I could build, which is just needs to be thin, so I could build these covers over the roofs and box that in. But when I do the top roof, I use a square piece from. Walmart sells a for sale side that is 20 thou or 30 thou thick.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, what I use is I bought a sheet of 4 feet by 8 feet of styrene, which is 0.04, 0.4, 0.04.
Yeah, so 40 thous.
Yeah, which is very rigid. Then I look at if I want to put decals on my building or signs. And here, for this building, since it's a hotel, I drew a hotel sign, which I want to make later that's going to be on the side of the building, basically something like this.
Is that the one you're going to do neon in?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's going to be on the side of the building. So look at decal, signs, people. Do I want people in my hotel? Well, I've got those cheap little people here, which I bought from China. They're not the right size.
Perfect for
So,
inside.
so what I do, that's it. I'm going to put them inside. So those rooms that are going to be lit up that I have here, I'm going to put some people inside the building. Next, what I want to do for the inside, I'm sure you've seen this before, where you try to find a picture that goes inside, and what you do is you kind of, oh, I don't know if you can see it, you kind of curve it to make it look, to give it depth.
Yeah.
So you make it wider than the area you want, so you can pinch it into place.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
like that effect.
And exactly. And what I want to do is put a light in that particular office, which is going to be this one right here, and also put a little figurine inside, so it kind of looks full. I don't know yet about the rooms. I'm gonna have to find some picture of a hotel room, but like looking from the window. If not, I'm probably gonna build little furniture with balsa wood and just paint it. I mean, you're not gonna see much of it.
But if you put curtains and stuff on the window or window shades,
Mhm.
you won't be able to see very much inside.
You're right. I'm not putting window shades. I'll put drapes instead.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what yeah, but a lot of times the hotels have, first of all, there's a blind you can pull across that allows light in.
Mhm.
Then there's a blind you pull across, or curtains, pardon me, that you pull across that keeps the light out. You have your choice.
Yeah. So that's why I've picked the floors and the rooms that I want lit. So those ones are gonna, there's probably gonna be, out of the 4 rooms, probably 3 will have open drapes and the other one will have closed drapes, but you'll still see some light going through it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do as well. I'm gonna open up a few of the window blinds, and I'm gonna put light in several of them, even quite a few of the closed curtains. But I'm just gonna do a few interiors because when I look at a hotel, and normally when I'm on the road traveling, I close the blinds for the most part. So you're in a city or something. I don't know if that would have been true in 1950, but so I don't
And
plan on opening much of it
what
up.
I did here is I drew the floor of how it's going to be. So I'm going to have to close up where I don't want to see any lights. And I've got these little lights. I remember you've seen those, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to cut open and just slide the light. So it's really going to be against the ceiling if you want. And because it's going to be against the ceiling, you won't be able to see it through the window. Now I just have to make sure that it's not too light because those lights are pretty bright.
Just add a resistor.
Huh?
Add a resistor.
Well, yeah, there's already a resistor on this, but
Yeah, you
what
can
I'm
add
going to do
another
is
one.
probably use the fact that I want the lights to go on and off. I'm probably going to use an Arduino for that.
Okay. For those that don't use Arduino, this is what I plan to use. It's the new lighting system from Woodland Scenics, and it has rheostats built right into it, so you can dial down the lighting.
And honestly, that's what most people should. Unless you want control, like with an Arduino, if you want to manually, that's the ticket. That is the way to do it.
There's what, 4 circuits,
Yeah.
and each one has its own little rheostat.
And Woodland Scenics did it right. So using that product from Woodland Scenics, you'd get a lot of life out of LEDs. And people talk about LEDs lasting forever. LEDs last forever if you treat them right. They don't last forever if you don't treat them right.
The show has become quiet now.
What are you doing there, Roy?
What am I doing now?
Yeah, what were you doing with the pencil?
Oh, I'm marking where I want my wall, my floor to be sitting on. Because as you can see, I've put in braces.
The styrofoam strips, yeah? Or styrene?
Yeah, styrene, so it will sit on. Oops. And I'm just measuring to do the other side, so it's going to be level. And I'm not putting a back wall to that building because it's really going against my backdrop. So this wall here, I won't use it. So what I'll do is keep it and use it on another building or scratch build something else.
If I were you, though, I would cover the back opening with a piece of styrene.
Keep light
Oh,
from leaking
definitely.
out.
Yeah. There's going to be a back to it for sure, but it won't be one of those. It won't be the thick one.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be a back to it.
Okay. Jerry Ashley says all his light LEDs have built-in resistors. Less soldering for you or for him, and that's fine. But if the LED is still too bright, you can add another resistor. You just have to calculate how small.
But I like my lights to be different. You know, in the real world, you know, we don't all have 40-watt bulbs or 60-watt bulbs, 75, 100-watt bulbs. That's an incandescent. You know, if you model modern, you need, or anything post 1950 something, you need to be able to model fluorescent and older bulbs, newer bulbs, indoor bulbs, outdoor bulbs, you know, halogen bulbs. So, which I think LEDs do a great job of that because of the color range that you can get on them with the warm LEDs and the bright white LEDs. That lets you get some variety, which is something that, you know, kind of naturally happened with gray to wheat bulbs, albeit with all the other negative trade-offs that came with gray to wheat bulbs.
Are you going to put different color LEDs in your hotel?
I use different colors in different applications. So maybe colors might be a strong wordage. I use the
No, I mean in your hotel.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would at a hotel where they would all be using the same bulbs and the same types of fixtures in every room because it's a hotel. In my houses, I use different bulbs from house to house. And I get that by using different sizes or by using warms and whites, or warms and whites together. And I use different color temperature bulbs. I buy LEDs from different suppliers, you know, that have, you know, 5300K or 4000K different color temperatures. So they have different warmness to them. Now that doesn't make that much of a difference per bulb. I mean, it does when you're figuring out what kind of overhead layout lighting you want to put on your layout. But when you're talking about small interior layout bulbs, it doesn't make much difference. But when you look across an entire cityscape and they're different and there's some variability there. I don't know, just another way you can add interest. And it's an easy way to add interest.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to do this is just to set them at somewhat different brightnesses. So now some of that's going to happen naturally because every room you put them in on your model is not necessarily going to have the same reflectivity, and it's not natural. It's just naturally gonna not look the same brightness in every room or come out the window the same way. Now I put bulbs. So far, in all the houses I've done, all the buildings I've done, I put the bulb in the center of the roof, exactly where the fixture would go, and I put a glass dome over it, a frosted glass dome inside the structure. So if you look through the window, you see the bulb where you expect it to be, and it has a glass fixture over it. It's not glass; it has a 3D printed frosted fixture over it. So, which diminishes the light quality sub, and then you can even use that to color the light. A lot of people do, and I plan on, in some cases, using, painting some of the LEDs. Who is it makes that paint? Is it Tamiya that makes that that translucent paint?
Yeah, they do have some.
Some people paint LEDs with those.
Yep. They come in amber, yellow, red, and blue, I believe.
Yeah, so if you took a little bit of the amber, and painted some different bulbs just so you got some variability in color. And a lot of this has to do with what you're modeling, what era.
I've got an even better trick than that, Andy.
All right.
Your LED is like a 3 mil. You take a Sharpie and you just put a little dot right on the tip of the LED.
Okay.
Changes the characteristics totally.
Sure, it would. And I'm using 0402 and 0603s mostly. I've got some 0804s or 0805, something like that. But the little 4x2 that I'm using mostly, those things are so doggone small, but they go directly inside of that little 3D printed globe I got from Shapeways.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they just drop right down in the globe. They look awesome. And it looks like when you look at the globe, now the camera, light, it's hard to take pictures of lights on cameras. Our webcams especially, and even my DSLR, iPhone cameras, etc., just don't do a good job of this. When you look at it with my camera, you just see a bright spot in the center of the room. When I look at it with my eye, looking through the window, I can see where the bulb is or where the LED is in that 3D printed frosted fixture. So I could easily recreate the effect of the way we used to have the old schoolhouse lights, which that's what these are, where they had two bulbs coming out of a single fixture and you had two incandescent bulbs in it. You could easily recreate that effect with these 3D printed globes that I'm using. They only look good really close up, but boy do they.
I'm not sure what the guy's name is. IXO Pop, POP. He wants to know if anybody has experience with potentiometers. Makes resistance adjustable for varied lighting. That's basically what the Woodland Scenics has done. I'm not sure how they achieve the potentiometer type thing, but I'm sure that's what it is.
Now, Woody did something a little unique with theirs. They are, okay, you can dim LEDs with resistors, but that's not the right way to do it. Because the right way to do it is, a resistor is a voltage device. It lowers the voltage. It adds resistance and reduces the voltage. Slows the electrons down. But you're better to reduce the amount of current going to them and keep 3 volts all the time, which would in theory give you the same brightness. But what they do with sophisticated systems that dim your LEDs is they use PWM, or pulse width modulation. And what they do is flash the LED on and off really fast. And if they flash it If they leave it on more often than off, then to your eye, due to like object permanence or something, or the refresh rate of the eye, the light looks like it stayed on. And I think Woodland Scenics did it that way. And because, and that if you do it that way, that's the reason I too am a big fan of the Woodland Scenics device, other than the fact that there's no great way to centrally control it. Although I have been thinking about using the remote out on the Woodland Scenics Light Hub and firing that with an Arduino, so that you could use an Arduino to control the Woodland Scenics hub. So you could do it with resistance, but it's not the best way to increase the life of your LEDs. If you want the longest life, pulse width modulation, and that's why the Woody's hub is such a good idea. Yeah, especially for the money, for $15. Yeah, that styrene that they gave us for the roof in this kit is about useless. Yeah, it might stiff it up a little bit if you like glued some sandpaper to it or something, but I'm not going to do that anyway. I've had the best luck doing roofs with tissue paper. But you lose such a good opportunity to pick up rigidity if you use solid material like this 6,000 styrene or 60,000 styrene that I'm using. I could make this structure quite solid just by putting a solid piece of roofing material in it.
Why I won't go up? I'm not sure who was Ron answering. Ron's Trains and Things. So he's answering to Don. I've never tried it, but it would work the same. The terpenoid mineral spirits keeps paint from penetrating. Paint doesn't penetrate plastic. It sits on the surface. And please don't use artificial terpenoid or turpentine, real turpentine. It will actually melt your plastic. Use mineral spirits is fine.
I don't think you could use that. They're talking about that Chuck Doan technique that I love too. That's a great technique. I can't imagine that working on plastic.
It doesn't work on plastic. There's a whole other process.
Yeah. Hairspray probably worked pretty good.
It will, but you have to be careful with it. The technique that with the turpentine and so on wood kits, it works because it soaks into the wood.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't soak into the plastic, and that's why it won't work on plastic. I've heard some guys say that they got results from it, but I would really like to see what the results look like.
Yeah. I'm not saying you couldn't get some kind of result. It couldn't be the same result because you're losing. There's a principle of physics that's happening that you're just not getting.
I'll try and get the process copied and sent to you, Andy. I communicated with Chuck Doan for that specific reason about 2 years ago, and I got both methods from him. Working on wood and working on plastic, and I'll try and post it so that these guys can have it.
Well, at some point we need to do a plastic structure that is actually meant to recreate wood. In this case, everything we're working with is all meant to recreate a masonry or brick structure of some kind. So. So what size styrene are you using for your floors, did you say? If that roll, or that 4x8 sheet material, did you say it was like 30 thou, 20 thou?
No, what's the thick? If I say 0.4, is it thicker than 0.2?
Yes, twice as thick.
Okay, so it's 0.4.
Yeah, that's pretty thick stuff. This, what I'm using on this one is 60 thou. So, which means I don't have to put any support in. I don't normally do that. I normally use something like what you're using. In this case, I'm using this 60 thou stuff because I got it. This stuff's pretty handy. This 60 thou stuff's proven to be pretty handy.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard as crap to cut, but you got to kind of attack it with the back of the blade a little bit. Kind of, cut it with the knife forward and then come back and attack it with the back of the knife. So you kind of get a V cut into it that allows it to break easier without having to saw through it. Now, I had to saw some more narrow spots because I used styrene on the new bridge that I had built, on a piece of the new bridge I had built. And I had to saw through it with a saw.
Well, my brewery, I already started a few walls for my brewery, and it's all done with 0.4.
Yeah, you probably need to get started on a brewery. That's gonna take you. You got a set of buildings or wood industry that's the size of a lot of people's layouts. So. But I have to get started on it, don't you, brother?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got the main building done. Well, I mean, not done, but the walls are cut and painted. Windows, I got to work on the windows. And I'm debating on putting what is it called? Like clouds. Like it's a sheet of clouds and sky inside the building to make it like a reflection in the windows.
Oh, really? Okay. Huh. You ought to try this glass stuff that I'm talking about. I'm telling you, man, it is so reflective. Like, you wouldn't believe how. Well, I mean, it's like a piece of glass. You'd believe it because it looks like a piece of glass.
Oh, I believe it.
Yep.
All right, I just went and picked up what I had done already. So this is, oh gee, I just broke a piece. Oh, great. Anyway, so this is what the front of the building will look like.
Nice.
It's like some type of stucco paint from Krylon. And this is what I was telling you about. Like if I was to put like clouds like this, well, maybe on the two first floors.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out what exactly I should be doing. I'm still not too satisfied. Well, this one, yeah.
So I've tried this from a bunch of angles too, and I even bought a few things. So I bought some screen protectors for an iPhone I had actually I think I had them on my Galaxy Note when I gave Android a shot for a couple months some years ago, and they were mirror reflective, which gave you privacy looking at your phone because you couldn't see it from any angle but direct, but also gave you the ability to glance down and make sure your hair wasn't completely stupid looking before you walked into somebody's office. It seemed like a great idea at the time, and it was awful, as in unusable awful. So I had some of those mirrored screen protectors laying around here. I'm just something I ordered on a whim. And I stuck some of those in behind some windows looking at them not too long ago. And you can buy those for a couple bucks. You know, $3 or $4, buy some of those. And they're small. They're acetate. You know, a screen protector is no different than what we use for windows. And they are quite reflective. Yet you could still put a light behind them if you wanted to. You can still put a light behind them and put an interior in there. And if you lit up behind them, I mean, it would do exactly what you would want for like a modern skyscraper where the glass looks mirrored, except when there's a lot of light on or at night or something. So buying some mirrored screen protectors would be interesting.
Yeah, you see, like this paper, this is LaserJet water slide decal paper, white.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay, so by putting it on the plastic, if you got light inside the building, the light will shine through.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So it's a decal film. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you gonna? Yeah. You'd adhere it to an acetate or something, and then put it on the windows?
Yeah.
In the windows. That's a.
Yeah.
Well, it's an original idea. I'll give you that much. I never seen anybody else do that. Like I said, like I've said before, I give a lot of credibility to originality.
So I've got that part of the building, the office part done, and also I've already started the garage, the loading dock. But decided to take a break and finish my wiring.
The loading dock for the refinery?
No, for the brewery.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Look, it's a 10-door. Is it 10 or 12? I think it's a 10-door loading dock.
AJ was, since we're talking about styrene, asked what thickness of styrene would you use for the backdrop and fascia of a layout. Which interesting. AJ, I am using styrene for my fascia, not for my backdrop. For my backdrop, I'm using roll coil aluminum, like flashing, but it's pre-painted. And then, but for my fascia, I'm using, I think it's 30 thou. I'm pretty sure it's 30 thousandths, and I got it 4x8 sheets like Lloyd did off of eBay. Come rolled up in a box. Is that how you got yours?
No, I went and picked it up, rolled up.
And you can get it on eBay in a roll like that too, which is infinitely handy to have a 4x8 sheet of that stuff around.
When I was looking for, because I calculated I would need a full sheet 4x8 for the brewery, and I was checking on eBay if I could get something, and I saw one for like a 4x8 for $18. I go, oh, that's great, because if you were to buy separate sheets, like what is it, 8x10, it would ended up costing me like a few $100s. So for $18, I said, I'm gonna just buy a sheet. So I contacted the company and I said I'd be willing. How much would be the shipping? $350.
Wow.
I said, you know what? I'll go look somewhere else. So I ended up finding a place in the city where they had a sheet of 0.4, but that's the only thing they had. Like if I wanted to buy a sheet of 0.2, forget it. They don't keep that.
Huh. See, the stuff I think that I got off eBay is 0.3. I could be wrong about that. I think it's 30 thousandths. And I could order white for 6 sheets for $100 free shipping. But then I'd have to paint it and worry about scratching on the front of the fascia, which is fine. That's not a problem. I wasn't too worried about that. But I found black for slightly more. But it was like per sheet, but it was more than the $16, $18 a sheet that would have been buying it that way. So, but I did buy the black to do my fascia with.
I'm watching you put those floors.
Yeah, I'm
Are you
thinking about
going the
my
floors
elevation.
before you do the light, or
Yeah.
you're just checking?
No, well, so I'm going to backfeed the light. In my case, I'm basically building a bunch of shadow boxes. So these floors are narrower than the back walls, so I could run my wires up in the back and drop them all in there, put
Hmm.
all my electronics on the back of it. This also is a flat, and it's sticking against the wall without it affecting anything. So my
Hmm.
Arduino and all my stuff could be on the back of it. So once I get the floors in, then I'll take take my for sale sign or whatever and make me a back plate that sets inside the wall.
Hmm.
It sets in
But
here.
aren't you going to paint the inside black?
I don't normally. I do sometimes in some cases, but only if it's at an extreme distance. Normally, I don't like to do that because then if you look through the windows, you're looking at black walls, and if it's a punk
No, no,
teenager, a goth teenager's room or something, then black walls wouldn't be out of the question. But for most people, black walls are a little unorthodox.
yeah, but when I'm talking about black walls, I'm talking about the three sides. That's it. So that the light won't shine through your wall.
So you can paint the backside. You're
Yeah,
talking the front walls of the building?
Yeah.
well, that
Those
that that would be a
probably
problem
that it won't happen.
sometimes. This particular kit's thick enough. I don't foresee light. I probably ought to test that, but I don't foresee light making it through this plastic.
Unless it's close to the plastic, then you'll see.
Now, I will give you that that the quarters might be a bit of a concern.
Hmm. That
But
too.
yeah, I hadn't thought about that particular case on the quarters. I might ought to put a square stock of styrene up the quarter or to seal it, or probably, like you say, just paint that with a thick coat of acrylic or something up the quarter to make sure it.
The best way is go inside your cupboard, close the door, and put the light against the wall. Maybe here, I'll see if I can do it.
Yeah, my wife already thinks I'm crazy, so if I go doing that stuff,
Yeah.
Depends, like if you're gonna put this is what do you call it? Yellowish, and if I put the other wire, then it's white. So that's
oh yeah.
less light.
Well, that light, and I bought some of those too. I don't know what I done with those. I ordered some of those when you were showing those to us. Those are awesome. They have a warm white bulb and a white bulb. So you could fire both of those bulbs at the same time, right? Because it has three leads on it.
Yeah, it's got three leads, but you can't. You got to pick the right color the right light you want. You can't put both of them.
You can't.
So like right now, I've got the yellow wire, which is light. Oh, by the way, you can see the light right through the plastic.
Have you
Yeah,
painted
but
yours
your light
yet?
is right up against it. If it's going to be
Yeah,
in the
well,
ceiling, it's not right up against it.
no, it's not right against it, but there's a good chance that you might see, um, unless, like you said, like you lower the amperage by putting a resistor.
Yeah, and I run my bulbs fairly low by comparison to what the 0402s put out. That's one of the smallest pre-wired SMD or surface mount LEDs that you could buy ready assembled pre-wired. The 0402s, and I run them at about half of their available current, so they're run quite low. But I have a small BTS kit that has 11 lights in it. I lit every room in that house with separate wires so that I could go back and turn them on or off as needed with a common ground, or common power and switch the ground. So I could turn lights on or off, but I could brighten them up or dim them. I wish you could. I thought you could possibly use the warm white and the off and the white in that light and intermix them so you could use a little bit of warm white with the white to slightly alter the color.
I don't know. You want me to try it?
Well, out of curiosity, see if you can fire both at the same time.
I
Seems
won't
like you'd
lose
be
this
able
light.
to. Now
You
there
know me
is
in
a way.
electronics, eh?
Yeah. It's supposed to be an electronics show, but lighting is important to our structures. I don't think we'll ever talk about Arduinos and stuff much on here, or actually do anything with it. But actually putting lighting in structures is one of the things I'm going to do to this, like you are to yours. And we will talk more about actually lighting the buildings, and we'll leave it up to the guys who do Arduinos and such in our community and
No,
on YouTube at
I
large.
just tried it, and you can't get both.
And
Right now, one is strong. No, you can't. Like it picks, I don't know which one first. I don't know, but it only lights up the white one.
Yeah, and I could think of a way they could have wired that, where they could have actually wired a warm white and a white. I just used 2 wires, not use 3. And if you put polarity through it forward, it was warm white, and if you put polarity through it reverse, it was white. I don't know what else to call it, if it's warm white or white, but so you could flip
Yeah.
it. But the fact that it has 3 pins implies that you should be able to.
Yeah, the two of them show up, but it's the one that has the strongest light will take over. In this case, it's the yellowish light that takes over the white.
So what? But then you could still fire them at the same time. So with an Arduino, you could still turn one of them way down and one of them up more, and you could still, that way you could just slightly alter the color. That's still possible.
Yeah. But what I do with this one is depending on what I want. In this case, it's probably going to be the white because it's has less what do you call it, luminix or. So what I do is I remove the shrink. What do you call it? The shrink.
Yeah.
Each shrink. I remove each shrink. I'll remove the wire I don't need and just put it back together. Because to make it fit, you got to pass it through the hole, and this makes it a very big hole. So by removing one resistor and one wire, it makes it thinner, so the hole is thinner.
Yeah. Now, in my case, I'm gonna run my leads. I'm gonna make this back plate that I'm putting over the back of this removable, so I can get in here and make changes if I want to. I'm gonna put pictures on my back plate, so if you look up, through the window, you'll see a picture that's on here. And then I'm going to run my light from the back plate out through a little piece of copper tube so that it sticks out into the room, but up on the ceiling somewhere. And then I'm going to isolate a few of the rooms, but just with the thin styrene, I'm going to isolate these 2 off and these 2 off so that each pair of windows looks like a hotel room. So you have.
in both your cases, guys, since you're doing your wiring on multi-floors, I would put, you have a section of windows that has a wider band, so you have them in pairs. Then a wide band, pair of windows, wide band, pair of windows. If you ran a plastic straw, a drinking straw, down behind that with openings in it at the floors, at the ceiling, to bring your light wires out. So you run your wires on the face of the building.
Yeah, you could do that, but I don't want to take.
Yeah.
I don't want to take this apart. I don't feel like having to resolder and everything. So what I'm doing,
But you don't have
is
to
I don't.
use a drinking straw.
Yeah, but I'm gonna do it much easier. It's just I don't know if you can see. There's a black line that goes right across. That's where the wall is gonna be. So what I'm gonna do is cut so I can fit this in. Basically,
But it's
like
not
this.
that part that I'm talking about. It's the wiring that you say you have to drill a big hole for.
No, it's just that this light will be about here, and since there's a wall that goes right across, all my wiring is going to be in the back. You won't see it. So I don't need to install a straw but if it was a full floor, then you're right. I would need some way of hiding that wire.
Well, the drinking straw is a pretty good idea, though, and I think that may even make more sense for my application, to keep you from being able to look up and see my wire come out from the ceiling and light it actually above the windows. I'm going to play with that some. I'm going to run me some LEDs up in a drinking straw and just see what kind of casting effects I get.
Andy, if you really wanted to use a brass tube, that's fine too.
Just file a hole in it. Yeah.
Use the brass tube as one of your wires.
Yes, that's the reason I like the
Mhm.
brass tube idea. Yep, use it as the common ground.
Right.
I
Then I
bought
just have
this
to
on
work one.
eBay. They're tubes, they're square tubes, they're round tubes, so I can pass my wires in it. There's smaller ones. The smallest one I got is something like this. I got some square ones. So that's what I use to pass all my wires in.
Well, we've run for an hour, a little over an hour and a half. We've actually run a few minutes long, but we were in the middle of what we were figuring out with this. So next show we'll carry on with some plastics. We're gonna do this for the next few shows. Get this building, get some interiors, so, get a position so that we can do some interior work on future upcoming shows. That's an important thing. I want to do various types of interiors into next year sometime. And then we also have the wood structure that both me and Ralph have built from Imagine That Laser Art that I'm going to plant. They go in a similar place on my layout in a city scene on a module that I'm currently building right now. So in the very near future, I'll have that module far enough along. Ralph's in a similar situation where he's completing that area he was talking about above his hidden track work, so that he could and maybe by that time, maybe first of the year, into this year, first of the year, he and I will be far enough along where we can focus on planting these couple structures that we've built into the scene, doing some sidewalk work and scenery work. You know, like we've talked about before on this show, it's not a structure dedicated show, and I care as much about doing the interiors and the particulars of getting lighting inside and the planting it and doing sidewalks as I do the structure building. So look for that on upcoming shows. Otherwise, we're going to call this one for tonight. Thanks everybody for participating, for chatting and talking with us tonight as we went through the show. Again, our hearts go out to the victims of the recent hurricanes, and to Johnny, who's set with no power. Could be a lot worse, but still, no electricity is pretty bad for us. And it'd be pretty bad for me. And look for the show tomorrow. That's going to be a really exciting show with New Jersey Conrail, in-scale guy. He's been on a Saturday show with Bill before. He's really interesting fellow, and he's going to take a locomotive and into the shop and beginning to end on that thing. It's looks really good. I've seen some of the pre-work for it, and I'm really excited to watch that show tomorrow night. So look forward to that tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Thursday show should be on as normal. If you see the announcement from Bill on his channel, I think earlier today, he had released a video saying they were going to consolidate Saturday's show into the tomorrow night's Wednesday show, which, you know, I know Bill's real excited about that show tomorrow as well. So that should be a real exciting show tomorrow. But Saturday show will be canceled for this month or consolidated into the Wednesday show, rather. Due to some other commitments, and there's so much going on right now with all the things that have happened as of recent, and with some of Bill's family commitments. So thanks everybody for joining us. Reach out on our community, on our G Plus page, on our Facebook page, and post or read our posts. Check out our schedule of upcoming events on the YouTube Auto Builders website, and from the website you can get a copy of our e-bag. Great magazine, free, out every other month. So thanks everybody for participating. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys next month.
Good night.